Greetings and welcome to Hot Topics from the Soul. I'm your host, Dr. Valerie Parker Hagan, and I have my co host along with me.
And great day, and great evening that it is. This is a beautiful Tuesday, and we're looking forward to our time together tonight. You know, there's so many things that happened in the course of one week, and we've had a lot of things to happen. And we really want to dive in today because we want to not only share with you, but we want to hear your voice. We want to hear your comments. We want to hear, what things do you have in mind as we stand up and we speak out.
Absolutely. Our voice matters, our voice counts no matter what. If we stand together as a people, as a nation, we can provoke change to happen. There's been boycotts from before I was born. Growing up, I kept hearing about the Montgomery boycott. That happened in 1955. So it was before I was born. And that's all they talked about. It was a movement, it was an excitement because it was change took place because people came together and said no more.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what we understood at the end of the day, we live in a capitalistic society. So there's an old saying that say you have to hit them where it hurts. Well, when it
Mm.
hits the pocketbook, it hurts. When people think that when they think their supply determines the demand, what boycotting does is say, oh no, the demand will determine the supply because we can shut it down if we choose not to use it. And when boycotts are used effectively, it makes changes. We just have to keep in mind that every boycott, every boycott is not going to last a week or a day. Most of them not going to last that. Most of them going to last a lot longer than that because you must be able to do it long enough for the institution or the organization or whoever to feel that pain of your absence. I like to say it as I always say: if my presence don't make a difference, then my absence doesn't neither. And so if that's the thought that the organization has, that listen, we won't miss their money. Well, guess what? They'll find out in time. We will miss their money, their presence, because guess what? They drive the value. They drive the revenue. They drive it. And we have to recognize that's the power that we have when we stand together.
I wonder, Dr. J, are we disciplined enough to follow through as our previous ancestors did? They stuck together. They made change happen. Regardless of the it being uncomfortable. I don't know if we're you know got what it takes now to stand against the cover. We so bougie and stuff, and it's like, okay, what do you mean I can't order from Amazon in a week? I may be able to not order from Amazon for a couple of days, but a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, oh no, what do you mean? So I wonder if we as a people can be disciplined enough. And I'm not just talking, African American and stuff. I'm talking about us as a people because guess what? The price of eggs is affecting all of us. Don't matter what color you are, don't matter what nationality you are, it doesn't matter what your pay grade is, it doesn't matter what Republican or Democrat or private party you belong to, it affects us all. So, are we disciplined enough to say, listen, we want change and we want to empower ourselves so that, not to cause a civil unrest, where, we're kicking against the grain, but things that really matter, Dr. J. I remember reading in Chicago in 1963 about how the agriculture and farm workers, they protested because of the fact that they were being paid $1.25 an hour, $1.25 an hour, and they wanted a mere increase to $1.40. $1.40 was a difference between night and day back at that time. So look at us now.
Yeah.
Look at us now. I remember when we was making $5 an hour and we was like a little satisfied. We thought we had arrived making $5 an hour.
Absolutely.
Now you can work fast food for $15 an hour.
Yeah, and by the same token, we've seen the economy change and the cost of living and all those things there. So is it commensurate with where we are? But I think your principal question is this: Do we possess the resiliency, the discipline, the wherewithal to say we're going to stick together and we're not going to patronize this. We're not going to do this because and the only way that we can do it, we must have in mind what we must have the end in mind. We have to. The problem is so often now is the fact that people are not as collectively gathered as we were then. We understood that we needed to have some things change. What it really is a lesson to us, even though those of us whose generation that was a part of that movement, baby boomers, you and I are, we're baby boomers. And we saw that, of course, back then, these baby boomers were really babies, okay. But we saw them be courageous, stand up, and they made it happen. We generally blame the younger generation, and we say y'all act like y'all are entitled, and we say they act like they're entitled because they don't understand the struggle that it took in order to get things that they so easily have a hand on to. Now we're going to be back in that place there. Do we have the strength? In other words, as the old song go, can we do it again? Do we have the strength to do it again? Do we have the resolve to do it again? Do we have the patience and the discipline to do it again? And that means that we can do this thing, we can set up, we can be collective, because in all actuality, when we look at what's going on around us, the Constitution, as we knew it, supports us. Problem is, the Constitution looks like right about now, it looks like it's tissue paper. being ripped apart. And you have to ask yourself the question, where are the lawmakers, the people that you voted for, the lawmakers, your state representatives, and those different individuals? Are they standing up or are they speaking out? I mean, some of this stuff is really civics 101. Civics 101. Three equal branches of government, none having more power than the other. And so when we see things,
well, that's not what we're dealing with right now. We're under one world rule right now, and it's like everyone has gone silent because they're afraid. And fear has gripped us as a nation. So do we have the stamina? Do we have what it takes to stand up for what is right? Are we willing to make the sacrifices, even if it costs us our lives?
Well, once again, it goes back to the fact, what does it mean to us? See, the problem is now is that when we talk about so many of the rights that we got came on the back and through the blood, sweat, and tears of those before us, they really shedded their blood, their sweat, and their tears. What we've had is another generation, even this generation that we are part of ourselves, that we're in a time now where people look for popularity more than they look for really positive change. People look to be famous rather than look to be change makers. And so when we are looking for the reward before we put in the effort, then we put ourselves at a disadvantage, and it does compromise our ability to make these things work. But there has to be a revival in mindset, a revival in passion, saying we will stand up, because that's what we had to do before. We had to stand up for what we believe.
Absolutely, Dr. J. Even when it comes down to our educational systems, they're shutting down the educational system as we know it. They're wanting to rip pages out of the history books. Now, granted, some things should be removed, but our history that we know and that our ancestors told us. And see, that's another thing. There was a time I loved sitting at my grandmother's feet. I loved hearing stories because it shaped me to be who I am right now. And right now, the stories that are being told are not those that are worth preserving. The stories that are being told now is like, talking about how you went down to the grocery store and you was able to get this, or you caught a sale at Macy's. And so those are the stories that are being told now, but not things that were congruent, that held us together as a people, about the sacrifices that were made when they had to boycott in Chicago about sanitation, all these things that were necessary for us to be able to thrive and live this life that we're living right now. Are we willing and able to make those sacrifices now?
You know, and it goes back to this. I often say we got what we wanted, but did we lose what we had? And we got what we wanted. You know, we got laws passed, we got all those things there, but somehow or another we lost that drive, that commitment. And so what I'm convinced of is the fact that in so many cases, in different aspects of our lives, it's not a matter of whether or not we can get it. Our problem is, can we sustain it? Can we sustain the movement? And so, you know, you can't think that the movement is done just because we reach a proverbial finish line when we know that the goalpost is always being moved. It's always being moved. And so what we have to do now is now to organize, galvanize, recognize the fact this is no time for grandstanding. This is about our future for sure. I mean, you know, if we're going to be more, if we can be more direct, we're hearing words like DEI. You know, that's an acronym for diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are things here that is now that those three letters has now been weaponized and being demonized by certain individuals. They are trying to make DEI seem as if it's some type of bias, reverse racism, and those things, but that's not the case at all. If you look at it, watch what I'm about to say. Diversity, equity, inclusion, Dr. Val, was the principle that the United States in and of itself that is supported by the various laws and the constitutional provisions that promote what? Equal opportunity. That's all it means.
Opportunities.
Prevent discrimination, ensure fairness in different aspects of society, because those things did not once exist. These laws, since they've been enacted and been in place, they benefit historically marginalized and underrepresented groups. And that includes not only racial groups, but ethnic minorities, women. So did I say women? Yeah, women. And when I say women, white women, black women, Hispanic women, people with disabilities. Think about that. Disabilities don't discriminate. So you got people with disability. And I know people may not like it, but even as these civil rights have expanded, even the LGBTQB, RSTUV community, individuals and others facing discrimination. So there was certain things that was there. And to go to try to gut things as if somehow or another it has hurt us is ludicrous.
Right. And you know, the thing, Dr. J, is, you know, we want to be accepted for our knowledge and our abilities.
Right.
And not because of the color of our skin, not because of our sexual orientation. And see, that's what that umbrella encompassed for us. Exactly. It allowed us to say, okay, you cannot fire me because you don't like the way I look.
Exactly.
You can't fire me because I'm not a certain sex. And so, like you said, it was for all, it encompassed all people, and you have more white women, Hispanics, and stuff that have jobs because of that. But you know, the fantasy is it was just for Black people.
And
it was just to get Black people jobs.
No, nothing could be further from the truth. And if that was true, guess what? Black people deserved it because they built this country. They did all this labor here. And so when we look at that, but when we look at the U.S. Constitution, particularly up under the Amendment 14, which were really the Equal Protection Clause, is what that's all about, Dr. Val. And so it ensures that no state should deny any person equal protection under the law. And that has been the basis for many of our civil rights laws, cases, including those that challenge discrimination in education, employment, and public services. So if these things did not exist, if these things did not come into play, guess what? There was a lot of what we call redlining happening. We had a lot of things that happened that basically discriminated against people, women, minorities, all these underserved communities. In the audacity for anyone to all of a sudden now try to demonize diversity, as if you're making some type of special exception. No, it's not an exception. It is about equity. It's about equity. It's about not only equity, but it's also inclusion, and that you're not, ostracizing one group out of the whole, if you would, American pie, the American dream. And that's what we got to get back to. But it is almost as if everybody else's mouth is muted while there's just one talking head that continues to go on and lie to try to justify the things that are happening. And we're seeing people being affected all the way around. People's lives are being upended. People are seeing things that are going to hurt them. We've got to understand, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, both Title 7 and Title 7 and I believe Title 6, all those things, it prohibited things like employment discrimination, right? Based upon race and color, religion, sex, or national origin. It prohibited discrimination in federally funded programs, including schools and university. All these things is what? Protections. Protections. This is no gift given to no one. These are protections. American with Disability Act is a protection. It prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities. And all these things have benefited. People have been able to excel. And so all these things are built upon these amendments and things. The Equal Pay Act, I think that was in 1963. All of these things were important. And these things here are now being, if you would, threatened.
Absolutely, Dr. J.
What is the benefit of trying to strip these things? Tell me, how does that make America great again?
Well, you know what? It's like a tunnel vision. It's like nobody matters, nobody cares. We're just like pawns, and you just do what I say. We're robots, and we're supposed to just accept whatever it is because you're the higher power. But God is the highest of all power. In Him we live, we move, and we will have our being. No one can take that from us but the Master. So we need to be able to stand for something. What are we standing for? What is it that we're going to try to protect? You love your family. Parents love their children. What are you standing for? What are you going to do when it comes down to making a choice? When we're called to galvanize, to stand up and say no more, we're not going to allow you to dictate our lives. You're not going to be able to strip us from our will. Are you willing to stand, and do you have the courage to walk it out? Like I said, some of us can't even stay off of Amazon, and forget social media. If we say ban social media, that means even the platform you're listening on with us now, if we say we're going to boycott, we're going to do it, we're going to delete it from our phones, probably 10% may do it. 10% may do it. What are you standing for? And do you have the courage to walk it out? Our voice matters. Our actions matter. When we stand together, we can bring about change.
We have to go back to those words again. Those words, those very words that they're trying to demonize and make a bad word, are really words of strength. They are. Diversity, meaning differences. Our diversity. We're diverse. Thank God we're not all the same. Only thing that's the same, that we're all created equal. Only thing that's the same, that we're all human beings. But thank God we're not all the same. Thank God we don't all have the same personality, because that's what the diversity is all about. The diversity is about the differences that exist. And I love giving the illustration of, South Florida. We love living in South Florida. South Florida is beautiful. But you know what, Dr. Val? South Florida would not be so beautiful if the only trees that we had was palm trees and nothing else. Because it would be nothing else to bring it, to enhance it. And so that's what we do when we embrace diversity. Diversity embrace equal unity achieved. That's what makes us look like we do. And when we achieve unity, then power is released. And when power is released, people's lives are changed because we stood up and we stood together and we spoke out for what is right. And that's what it's going to take now. Speak it out for what is right. not backing up, not turning around, not running like a dog with our tail between our legs, but rather speaking up, standing out, we used to say, cry loud and spare not. That is what's going to have to do. It's a biblical principle. Cry loud, spare not. We got to lift up our voice in Zion. And why are we doing this? Not so much because we don't believe that God is on our side, but to make a visible demonstration in this natural realm that we refuse, watch this, we refuse to bow down. For the people that know their God shall be strong and do mighty exploits.
You know, I traveled with Les Brown around the world, and he used to always say, adversity introduces a man or woman to themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
And now that is more alive and has more meaning to me, because I often pondered what that would look like, adversity, and introducing it to me, because it means that it will show you what you're made of. It means it will show you what you stand for. It will show you if you're able to endure and be relentless. It will show you if you're going to be weak and cower down. Yes, adversity will introduce you to yourself.
Because we don't know what we're made of until we have been introduced to adversity. I like to say it this way. Our lives is like a tea bag. It's not worth anything until it goes through some hot water. And when we go through the hot water, that's when the flavors are released. And so we're going through some hot waters now.
Real hot waters.
Yeah. And it will determine what will come out. Will the flavor come out? What flavor will come out of us? Will we come out strong, or will we be bland? Will we be that thing that is so consecrated and so powerful that, listen, that though being small, we're powerful. And that's what adversity is meant to do. You know, there's a pressing, and we're going to be pressed, but there's going to be some oil. But we got to understand that's exactly what we want, because in fact, out of that is really the blessing and the essence of who we are. And the generation that come behind us will be blessed by it, because they would have seen an example of resiliency, an example of faith, an example of what it is to stand together in unity, an example of those that will speak out, those that will not cower down, but those that will continue to say, I shall not be moved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a season that a lot of us have never seen or thought that we would see. But one thing is for sure, we're going to have to buckle down, and we have to look out for one another, be our neighbors' keepers, our brothers' keepers. You know, I remember running low on sugar, and I used to knock on the neighbor house, didn't even know them, and say, do you have a cup of sugar? And it was friendly. Now you knock on somebody's door and you don't know who will open the door, who will have a gun in their hand, ready to blow you away just because of who you are. So, you know, we have to get back to loving and appreciating one another and being our brothers' keepers, looking out and having each other's back. And what that means is, when there is a call, when there is a charge sent out, are we going to stand? What are we going to be standing for? What is our voice? Where is our voice? Are you able and willing to join forces with the masses so that we can breathe again? It's like our breath has been taken away, and everybody's, gone into this womb of depression, because they don't know. We always fear the unknown. But greater is he that is in us than he that's in the world. But it just wonders, who's in you?
Exactly.
Who's in you? Who are you going to allow to stand up and rise up so that we can rise up and walk hand in hand, as Dr. King said? And I'm not just talking for our Black people. I'm talking for us as a nation. Exactly. We must gather together as a nation, as one, and take our power back. We are the people, and we must stand.
And that is the bottom line. We're no longer waiting for Superman. We are the change that we desire to see in the earth, and you got to stand up because I believe that truth will speak. It just needs a spokesperson, and we have to all collectively and individually volunteer to be that spokesperson who's going to speak truth to power, who's going to stand up, and who's not going to continue to allow things just to continue to unravel. You know, it is a sad thing in this day and time in 2025 that because of things such as prejudice and racism and hatred and envy and variance, that people are still being marginalized, being hurt, being attacked, being unjustifiably, prosecuted and things simply because of the fact of the color of their skin or their size or the fact that somebody feel like they don't belong on this side of town. Mm-hmm. That is a sadness. That is a sickness.
Yeah, it broke my heart during the pandemic when they were beating up Asians, and then they were standing on people's necks. They were throwing people from trains and buses and stuff just because, and nobody stood up, nobody said nothing. And then when we started to pull together and have Black Lives Matters and stuff, then we were told if we march, we'd be arrested. What are we standing for, and are we willing to pay that price? And we don't have to be violent. Our ancestors did and had a movement and didn't have no violence. The only violence was inflicted by the police department. And now we see in government that they're trying to dismantle that and put their own people in so that they'll have their own martial laws in place. That's because we allowed it. We voted people in. Dr. J, you called me and you were like, there's going to be a blackout day, and you was trying to explain the date. And I was like, why? I said, you said we need to get the word out. I said, why? Those are the ones that voted them in.
Mm-hmm. But see, here's the thing about it. What people understand is this really shows the power of the voice and the power of the vote as well. So this National Blackout Day is February 28th, which basically, we're being asked not to purchase anything, not to buy anything. If you need to do that, buy your gas and stuff before that time, your essential buy before that time, but don't allow your hand digitally to purchase nothing on February 28th. I don't care if you get hungry, you want a sandwich, you better eat the carrots or whatever you got in the house. Do not purchase anything. The economic power that we'll see when we work together in synergy will speak volumes, and we have to continue to do that. Now, that's one day of boycotting. That's not going to change the whole trajectory. But if we all do it collectively, oh yes, we will see major impact from it. And then we have being willing to go on to the next thing that we must do and stand together in unity, and we'll see the difference made.
Well, I'm looking in anticipation to see how many people of all colors, all nations, I want to see them stand.
Well, that's exactly what must happen. I was at a function earlier today, and it was interesting. For the first time in my life, I felt just a little strange doing the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Considering the climate of today's society. That has nothing to do with my disrespect of not honoring those who serve our country, and none of those things. But think about it, what it says. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. And that's the problem. It doesn't seem like the republic is standing. It doesn't seem like the republic is holding fast. Sounds like the republic is brick by brick being dismantled. Then it says one nation. Really? 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 Under God. Indivisible. We're divided more than ever in this country. With liberty and justice for all, who are you kidding? We're not seeing liberty and justice for all, even in 2025. So until we go back and do the work, that work must be accompanied by prayer, fasting, but most of all, got to be accompanied by people standing together.
Action.
Action.
It's going to take action, Dr. J. It's going to take action, and you know, I'm hoping, I'm hoping.
Absolutely. And it shall. It shall.
Well, this has been another Hot Topics from the Soul. And if you have enjoyed what we have been talking about, we ask that you would share it with someone and also subscribe to Hot Topics.
Hot
So,
topics from the soul, reaching all minds, turning knowledge into gold. Yeah, hot topics from the soul. Yeah, hot topics from the soul. Yeah, hot topics from the soul, reaching all minds, turning knowledge into gold. Yeah, hot topics from the soul. Hot topics from the soul. Yeah, yeah, hot topics from the soul, reaching all minds, turning knowledge into